I joined our firm, we were 19 people. It was called David Kelley Design at the time. It was named after my brother David. And at that moment in IDEO's history, everybody was an engineer. Everybody except me was an engineer, but they all had master's degrees in engineering, most of them mechanical engineering, and they were doing stuff like dropping magnesium laptop computers onto concrete, like dropping a meter onto concrete and see if you can keep it from breaking, right, and trying to design against a very tough specification. And not only was it a tough spec, but it was really clear if you succeeded or failed. You're looking at the pieces of the laptop on the concrete there, and you say, gee, is that a crack there? I think that's a crack. Got to go back to the drawing board and start over. So we had a very specification-driven business, very analytical, very tough, technical challenges. Until in 1991, along come these anthropologists. And we had kind of a lot of them all at once in 91, and I didn't get it. I wish I could say I did. If you read the CEO memoirs, I love the CEO memoirs where they always say, at some point in the book, they always say, I was the first to see the new direction. I was the first to see the power of the internet. Something like that. Not me. I was the last. I didn't get this anthropology stuff at all. They seem to have PhDs. Most of our anthropologists have PhDs in something like ethnography or cognitive psychology or something. But I said to my brother at the time, as we were both running the firm, said to my brother, here's an easy job, right? Because the engineers, they're trying to drop stuff a meter onto concrete. The anthropologists, they're out doing things like sitting by lakes and streams and watching kids fish and taking some pictures and then coming back and telling us about it, right? And I said, this is not a hard job. I'm going to skip the PhD and go straight to being an anthropologist, right? And in fact, I'm sure this won't translate in any way, but I'll just tell you what I said to my brother at the time. Remember, we're from small town Ohio, right? And our business is centered in the Silicon Valley, we've got offices here in Europe as well, but at the time we were all in the Silicon Valley. And I said to my brother, this anthropology stuff, it's kind of California, don't you think? By which I meant of questionable value. Stuff you might discuss in a hot tub or something. I didn't get it. I wish I could say I did. I didn't get it, right? But that was 1991. Here we are in 2008. I have flipped 180 degrees in that time. Because I now believe, far from being skeptical about the anthropology, I now believe it is the single biggest source of innovation in our firm and in many other organizations around the world that use it, right? Because like all of your organizations, I'm sure, we have great problem solvers. We have great people with, technical minds or analytical minds, or creative people who you give them a problem to work on and they will start right away with great enthusiasm, right? They are great problem solvers, but got to know what problem to solve. And the anthropologists are really good, hilariously good at going into the field and finding something new, finding some new problem and saying, hey, look at that. Or, hey, what just happened there? And often the answer to, hey, what just happened there, is a business opportunity. And it's not always a market viable opportunity, but every time, every time our anthropologists go into the field, they find some small opportunities. And then the decision is, can we make money on this? Can we effectively pursue this opportunity, right? But they find stuff every time hidden in plain sight. And so when we are working with very senior management, we try to work on this idea of fresh eyes. The CEO of Procter & Gamble, one of the biggest consumer products companies in the U.S., he would bring his team, his entire executive team from Ohio, where they are based, out to California once a year. So 40 senior executives, and these people have worked in their field 10 or 20 or 30 or some of them even 40 years. So they have this deep expertise. And we will say to them, look, we can't match your expertise. You know more about your businesses than we are ever going to learn. But for purposes of today, if you want to be a good anthropologist, we want you to set aside some of that expertise. We want you to see with fresh eyes. Right. In fact, we have an expression for this that we use when we're trying to get executives, people with deep expertise, trying to get them in the right frame of mind to be good anthropologists. And there's this word that I bet you use in Flemish that comes straight from French. It is untranslated. I spoke in 16 countries last year, and all of them use this word from the dictionary in French. You know, they just use it in their language, and it's called déjà vu. Right? Everybody knows déjà vu, been there before, right? Well, when we're working with these senior executives, we're trying to get them into the right state of mind. We're trying to get them to see with fresh eyes. We use not a dictionary expression like déjà vu, but something that's not in the dictionary, and we call it vujade. Right? This is the opposite of déjà vu. It's when you're in a place you've been a million times before, but you see it with fresh eyes, and you start to say, hey, why does it work that way? I know it's always been that way, but does it have to be? Once you're informed, once you have the discovery that you get from anthropology, what do you do with it? And what you do with it, if you're an innovator, is you design a great customer experience. Right? You use that. If you were the first organization to notice about the way kids brush their teeth or about the way the gamers think about how they're spending their time, you then translate that new knowledge, translate that new insight into a customer experience. And the best book on this subject, it's quite an old book now, but I still like it. I still have it on my bookshelf at work, is called The Experience Economy, written by a couple of guys named Pine and Gilmore. And they use a lot of examples about how companies or products or service offerings climb this pyramid from commodity to product to service to experience. And each step along the way, they're able to charge their customer more and have them be happier about it. And for the economists in the room, that almost defies a downward sloping demand curve. As you charge people more, they're supposed to have less people. But if you look at, they use Starbucks as an example. The cup of coffee, there's 100x markup from the beans harvested in the field to the, which is the commodity, to the product, which is at the ground beans in the grocery store, to the service, which is the local coffee shop, of which we have many bad ones in the U.S., to the experience, which is, got this architecture wrapped around it and things like that. 100 times markup from one to the, from the bottom of the pyramid to the top in that case. If you can think about the anthropologist, or you yourself or people on your team going out in the field and observing actual human behavior, as opposed to reading the marketing brochure about the way people should act. People never act exactly the way they're supposed to, right? So you observe actual human behavior. If you can be the experience architect and use those insights to deliver great customer experiences, if you can do those two things and take those ideas to heart, it will go a long way towards helping you build and nurture and reinforce your own unique cultures of innovation. Thank you very much.